Welcome to Q&A practice. Let's get started with some four-voice practice. Ready? We'll start with the plaintiff. Here we go. So a couple of hundred went into this Prussel pharmacy, and a couple of hundred ended up at Joyner Beauty World. I would say half of it. What about any additional inventory? I don't understand the question. As I recall, at our previous discussion, there was some inventory that had come in from funds obtained from litigation settlements in the Seacliff Pharmacy matter. Your Honor, I don't. What is your question? Maybe I should back up a little bit then. Did you get involved with litigation over a lease with the Seacliff building? Yes. Were settlement proceeds forthcoming to you out of that litigation? Yes. Approximately how much was that? That's the $3,000 each corporation. That's where the $3,000 each came from. I didn't have any money. Was any of that money used to purchase inventory, which was then transferred into Prussel Pharmacy, Inc.? Sure, yes. Was the inventory purchased by you and transferred to Prussel Pharmacy, Inc., or was the money given to Prussel Pharmacy, Inc., and then it purchased inventory? The latter. How much did you get from Seacliff? Did you answer that? From the settlement? Yes. He didn't ask the question. I am asking you, how much did you get? $5,000. What did you do with the $5,000? I paid the SBA, Chase Bank, almost $10,000. I used the money also to physically move the fixtures and merchandise, which was a couple of $1,000. Then the balance went into the two corporations. The only money you had to work with was the $55,000 from Seacliff? Right. It sounds like there was some extra money somewhere. If you had $55,000 and you paid $10,000 to the SBA and you paid a couple of $1,000 to move, that puts you at 12. I think it was $8,100 paid to the SBA. Right. You are coming up with numbers that you think you have to. You had $55,000 to work with. I know $8,100 went to the SBA because it is in the agreement. The rest of it you will have to tell me where that went to. That's fine. $6,000 went to the corporation, and that is fine for my purposes. Do you have records to indicate how much money was initially vested in the corporation? Yes. Good four-voice practice, number practice. Excuse me. All right, let's get back to our transcript with the EMT. All right, we will start with the plaintiff. Here we go. What is, strike that, how is that determination generally made, whether or not it's necessary or indicated? If we're talking about like a traumatic type call, we give morphine for pain, and it all depends on the type of injuries as well, because there's some side effects that can create more problems for the patient than do good for them. Do you have a recollection in this situation why morphine or some sort of pain medication was not given? More than likely it was because of the type of injury. She had a head injury, and so we were bringing her in as a neurotrauma, and the morphine is a vasodilator, so it could create more bleeding in the head if she had any, and would have created more problems than helped her. And that type of trauma would have to be a base hospital order as well to get the morphine. At the beginning of your deposition, you had mentioned that you spoke to a couple of the other firefighters, Kevin and Joe, about your deposition today. Can you tell me what it is that you discussed with them? Or I just asked both of them if they had remembered the call and maybe helped me to remember some of the details on what had happened and anything about the scene that they remembered. I think you said, was it Joe that had a pretty good recollection of it? Yeah, Joe Booth was my engineer that day, and he remembered a lot more details about the scene when they arrived. What type of information in particular did he remember? He actually remembered it was a lady, without me even telling him, that she was lying face down in the street, that she was by a bus stop. So it gave us a picture like she had gotten off the bus and tried to cross the street. Also, he remembered the alcohol smell. Did you also, on your own, remember that there was the odor of alcohol? The alcohol I do remember. I didn't remember a lot of the points about the scene itself. Was there anything else that he remembered or discussed with you about the alcohol, the odor of alcohol? Any more details? Well, using his words, I believe he said, "Oh, that was that drunk lady that was lying face down in the middle of the street." Did he say anything else about the scene in general, or anything else he recollected? No, not that I recall. Okay, he was your engineer that day, so he was the driver. Yes, right? But I think earlier you also said he was involved in rendering some medical treatment or aid to her. Do you know what he did or what his role was in that respect? He probably would either have taken the vitals and helped put her on a spinal board. Either way, he was in close proximity to her. Is that correct? Yes. Relatively close proximity? Yes. Did he do anything else that you can recall with respect to rendering any of the medical aid or treatment or assisting you in any way? On this call, that was all that the engine was pretty much responsible for. And the other person you mentioned was Kevin. Do you remember what you and Kevin discussed about the case or about the call? He said he remembered the lady lying face down in the street as well, with the smell of alcohol, but he didn't remember as many details about, like by a bus stop and possibly trying to cross the street. When you talked to Joe and Kevin, did you talk to them separately, or were you all together having a conversation separately? What was Kevin's role with respect to that call that day? Taking vitals and helping with C-spine. Same thing as Joe? Yes. So Joe would have taken one set and Kevin would have taken a second set of vitals, or would they do it together? No, probably one of them took the pulse and one took the blood pressure, and both assisted with C-spine. All right, that will conclude our Q&A practice for today. Thank you.